at every generation is very tedious, and at a time we may not get the threshold environment in order to select the genotype based on the phenotype. And the another difficulty is when we are handling large population. In the previous lecture or in the yesterday's lecture, you would have come to know that plant breeding is a number game. It means that we need to have larger population sizes. Why we need that? Because we need to identify a best recombinant, right? In order to identify the best recombinant, we need to have a very stringent selection procedure. Since the selection based on phenotype is confounded with several other factors such as environment, gene to E interactions, and also if the effect of genes is very less and it has got additive effect, dominance effect, epistatic effect, then the selection becomes the overall output of selection will be reduced. And therefore, but plant breeding has given lot of outputs. One of the example is this. A breeding program for improving basmati quality rice, that is, in order to improve the grain length after cooking of a basmati rice, a breeding program has started something around 20-25 years back. Okay. The first cross was made between PB1. You can see this is also PB1. These are the two sister lines generated from a particular cross. Although they have similar grain length or cooked kernel length is same, around 14 mm. But when we cross this and a series of intermating was done and several rounds of selection was carried out, every generation we accumulated favorable alleles into a single genetic background. And you can see that after 15 years of exercise, around 15 to 20 years of exercise, we came out with Pusa Basmati 1121. This variety has got the cooked kernel length of 20 mm. You can see here 14 mm to 20 mm. This is the drastic improvement. How this happened? This happened because there is a dispersion of genes, dispersion of QTLs, dispersion of genomic regions between these two similar looking genotypes. Although they are not exactly similar, they are sister lines, but they possess different QTLs. Okay. Since this is a quantitative trait, in each of the generation, upon selection, we bring the favorable alleles together. Okay. And therefore, ultimately we came out with Pusa Basmati 1121, which is the world's largest cooked kernel variety. Okay. But we have a success story, but it took 15 to 20 years to develop this. In order to have a precise breeding program wherein a selected genomic regions can be incorporated together into a single genetic background in order to improve the genetic potential of a variety can be possible only when you know the exact QTLs or genes that these two genotypes possess. If for example, think that you came to know that PB1-1 has got 5 QTLs, PB1-2 has got another 5 QTLs. Okay. If you know the genomic positions, chromosomal locations, then it is very easy. You just cross select for those particular marker genotypes and you will come out with the product, and that comes in a very short period of time, right. The major disadvantage of this is the value judgment. As I say, when we cross PB1 with PB1, although they are similar looking, there may be some increment in the grain length. Identifying that through phenotypic selection is a tough task, and that is the reason why we have few landmark rice varieties. We have few landmark varieties, for that matter, not only in rice, in other crops also, right. Recreating, if for example, if I give PB1-1 and 1-2 again, whether you will be able to recreate 1121 again? Don't know. It's very difficult. It's a chance factor, right? So, in order to have a precision breeding, we need to identify the genes or genomic regions or QTLs governing the trait which have got additive effect, dominance effect, epistatic effect, etc. Yesterday, you people have already discussed thoroughly on how to map the QTLs, right? How to map the QTLs using biparental mapping population. First thing is you need to have a mapping population. Mapping population can be F2 population, it can be F2 derived F3, it can be RIL, it can be double diploids, it can be nils, it can be bills, whatnot. There are several others. CSSLs, you have immortalized F2 population, etc., etc. But in order to develop the mapping population, the time required is around 4 to 5 years, right? If you take 2 crops per season till you go to F6 generation, you need at least 6 to 7 generations. 7 generations in the sense 3.5 years, right? Followed by, once you have the recombinant inbred line, for example, let's take recombinant inbred lines. Once these lines are developed, you have to phenotype them. Phenotype for another 2 years, right? Because you go for multi-location evaluation, multi-environment testing in order to have precise estimates. Then you go for genotyping, then generate linkage map. And then you identify the QTLs, or you declare QTLs based on some statistical tests. Okay. Now, this is a log value. Okay. This is the log value. You can see here it is around 5 log. How do we identify the exact region of a QTL? Now, when you from the peak, if you come down 1 log, right, it is 5 log. If you come down 4 log, draw a horizontal line. The points where exactly the curve cuts, from there you drop down, okay, to the region, and this is the position for the QTL. This is known as 1 log support interval or 1 log support confidence interval. Okay. Now, you can see here I have given in a very good experiment where you have very good coverage of markers, the interval that you are going to get is around 5 to 10 centimorgan. Why? Why can't you go much closer? Why can't you land onto 1 centimorgan region or 0.5 centimorgan region? Why you are landing to such a larger portion of the genome? Like for example, in rice, 1 centimorgan is around approximately 250 kb, right? 250 kb into 10 centimorgan, it will be 2500 kb. 2500 kb in the sense it is 2.5 MB. It is a huge genomic chunk, right? Now, in order to further go ahead with this particular QTL, what we do? We go for fine mapping and then identify the markers in between the region and then generate nil F2 population and then go for positional cloning. This is the actual workflow to identify the gene governing a quantitative trait. Why the window is so large? Because the meiotic events or the recombination events during the process of development of mapping population is very, very limited, right? Because you crossed once, right? You crossed once and there is a recombination occurring in F2 population followed by selfing. Selfing leads to fixation, right? So, the recombination event is actually 1 here. When you total out up to RIL, it is said that it is 2 meiotic events. Okay, it is approximately on an average it is 2 recombination events that is occurring from F1 to RIL population. So, since the meiotic events that the recombination events are limited, therefore, we cannot go much closer to the gene of interest. What is the alternate approach? The alternate approach is, why can't we tap the historical recombinants? In nature, rice has got evolved very long years back, right? From then on, lot of plant breeding activities have been taken up, and therefore there are several recombination events taking up as well as mutational events taking up. Okay, in the process, you can reduce the QTL window, or the confidence interval will be very less, and therefore the precision of QTL mapping will be very high. How can we do this? In order to understand that, we need to understand about the linkage disequilibrium. Before going to linkage disequilibrium, let me say that if you consider a particular gene with 2 alleles, okay, what will be the segregation ratio in a perfect random mating population? It will be in 1:2:1, right? If you consider 2 genes at a time, then it should have independent assortment, right? It should have independent assortment. If it is deviating from the expected gene frequencies or allele frequencies, then we say that the population or that those particular loci are not in linkage equilibrium, they are in linkage disequilibrium, right? This is an example. You can see here in case 1, consider 2 loci. This is locus 1 and this is locus 2, right? You can see here that AC is one haplotype, right? Let's consider AC as one haplotype or one individual. How many ACs are there? 1, 2, 2. Now the other combination is AT, 1, 2, AC, GC, 1, 2, GT, 1, 2. If you look at the allele frequencies, it is 0.5. If you look at the haplotype frequencies, it is also equal, 2:2:2:2, right? So this is in linkage equilibrium, right? But look at the case 2. Consider same loci again, A and C. Now if you see here, there are 4 individuals that carry AC and 4 individuals that carry GT, but AT and GC are missing, right? And therefore here we can say that there is a significant deviation from the expectation, right? And that is the reason why we say that it is these 2 loci are under LD, linkage disequilibrium. So linkage disequilibrium was first described by Jennings in 1917. Okay, the linkage disequilibrium may be due to linkage or may be due to some other factors also that we'll discuss. Now let's talk about haplotypes. What does haplotype mean? It's a stretch of genome, or it is a stretch of DNA segment, or it is a set of SNPs that tend to inherit together, and normally they do not undergo recombination. Okay, that is a haplotype. Okay. Now I said LD, linkage disequilibrium. Linkage disequilibrium can be between 2 loci, right? Between 2 genes or 2 alleles, right? When your linkage disequilibrium block is too high, okay, when the block is too high, your haplotype will be larger, right? And therefore the number of haplotypes or the number of LD blocks per genome will be less, right? Because as I said, LD is there when there is no recombination between the between a particular block, right? That we call it as LD block. When the LD blocks are larger, then we have when when the LD blocks are larger, the haplotype size is also larger, and when LD block is large, then the chromosome, if it is if chromosome is of 1 MB, and if your LD block is of say 10 kb, then 1 MB is divided into 10 kb each, right? If it is larger, if LD block is larger, then you have fewer LD blocks in the genome, and it requires less number of markers in order to identify the QTL, and the precision will be less. Why precision is less? Precision in the sense, I said resolution. As I said, in normal biparental mapping population, it is up to 5 to 10 centimorgan, right? If the LD blocks are larger, then you tend to identify that block as a QTL. If it has got association with the phenotype, then you will identify that block as a QTL. That if it is larger, as the block is larger, the resolution will be poor. In the same way, if your LD block is small, LD block is small in the sense the recombinational events are very, very high. When LD block is small, then haplotype will be small, and therefore there will be larger number of LD blocks per genome, and it requires more number of markers in order to identify the QTL. And if you identify a QTL, then it has got high resolution. Since the recombination events are too much, the power of identification will go down, right? It is all proportional to each other. Here, since LD blocks are larger, the power of identification of QTL is high. Clear? Now, once we know that the population or the two loci is under linkage disequilibrium, the next point will be to estimate LD, right? We need to estimate LD. Now, let us take a same example, locus 1 and locus 2, where you can see that there are 8 individuals. Okay. 4 individuals carry AB haplotype, 3 individuals carry small a small b haplotype, and the 1 individual carry small a capital B haplotype. Now, let us calculate haplotype frequency and allele frequency. Okay. Since we have 2 locus or 2 genes and 2 alleles, capital A small a, capital B small b. So, it is a 2 by 2 contingency table. You can see allele A, allele capital A, allele small a, allele capital B, allele small b, right? This is probability of haplotype capital A capital B, this is probability of small a capital B, this is capital A small b and small a small b. Now, how do we calculate the probability of capital A and capital B? How many individuals? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 individuals carry haplotype capital A capital B, and out of 8 individuals, it is 4 by 8, it is 0.5. In the same way, the probability of haplotype small a capital B is 1 out of 8, which is 0.125. In the third one, this is probability of haplotype capital A small b, which is 0, because it does not exist in the population. And the fourth one is capital B small a small b, which is 3 out of 8, which is 0.375, right? Now, in order to calculate the allele frequency, you can see here, this is capital B allele. If you add these two frequencies, then you will get the allele frequency of B. If you add these two, you will get the allele frequency of B, small b. If you add these two, you will have allele frequency of capital A. If you add these two, you will have allele frequency of small a. Now, once we have the haplotype frequency and allele frequency, we are ready to estimate LD. So, Leventin in 1964, he gave this method of estimating linkage disequilibrium. It is the deviation of haplotype frequency over expected gene frequencies. Okay. D is equal to probability of haplotype AB minus probability of A into probability of B. Probability of AB is observed, probability of gene frequencies is expected. Okay. If these two match, then it is in linkage equilibrium. If these two do not match, then there is an extent, there is a LD, right? How much LD? That is estimated by D. Okay. Now, probability of haplotype AB is 0.5. Here you can see probability of haplotype AB is 0.5 minus probability of frequency, allele frequency capital A is, here it is 0.5, and probability of allele frequency capital B is 0.625, here it is, right. You can see that 0.5 minus this is equal to 0.187. So, the D value here is 0.187. Now, can you cross check? D is equal to, if I write probability of small a capital B minus, what will be the formula? Probability of small a into probability of capital B. What do you expect? Will it be same or it will be different? If you calculate this, it will be same, okay, except for the sign. Okay, it will be minus 0.187. Okay, you do for this, again it will be same. You do for this, again it will be same, except for the signs. Okay, except for the signs. Now, in case you get minus 0.187, what does that mean? Linkage disequilibrium can be present or cannot be present, or you can say there is LD or there is no LD. There is nothing like negative terms, right. In order to avoid this kind of confusion, okay, a standardized method was reproposed, that we call it as D prime. D prime is D upon D max. Okay. What is D max? D max is minimum of probability of capital A into probability of small b, or probability of small a into probability of capital B. If D is greater than 0, if D is less than 0, then D max will be minimum of these two, that is capital A capital B or small b, product of capital A capital B or small b. Clear? You can calculate that. D prime is D is 0.187, right, divided by probability of, since it is D is more than 0, we are using the first one. Here you can see that probability of capital A is 0.5, probability of capital A is 0.5, probability of small b is 0.625, right. Sorry, probability of small b is 0.375, comma, probability of small a is 0.5, probability of capital B is 0.625, right. If you multiply these two, it will be 0.187. If you multiply these two, 6 5 is 30, it is around 0.3. Okay. So, 0.18 is less than 0.3. D max is minimum of these two, right. So, we use 0.187 as denominator. 0.187 by 0.187 is 1, right. So, D prime is 1. The range for D varies from minus 0.25 to plus 0.25. For D prime, since this is a standardized method of D, here the range, it ranges from 0 to 1. We have third measure, that is R square. What is R? What is R? Coefficient of regression, determination. R is coefficient of correlation, right? The coefficient of correlation is squared, right? So we write R square. R square is D square. The original D that we calculate is squared divided by, yes, D square is divided by the gene frequencies or allele frequencies of all the alleles under question, or two alleles, two genes under question. And this was given by Hill and Robertson in 1968. And if we calculate this, it will be 0.59. Okay. And D is very, very rarely used. D prime and R square are usually used in mapping genomic regions through association mapping, okay, of which R square is most preferred. Why so? Because D prime takes into account only recombinational history. It does not take into account the mutational history, okay. But R square considers both recombinational as well as mutational history, okay, and therefore R square is most reliable. Now, once you know how to estimate LD, what will be our next step? We have molecular markers across the genome, right? We have markers across the genome. Each and every pair can be compared, or the LD between each and every pair can be estimated, right? For example, you have 10 markers, marker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. You can estimate LD between 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5 and so on. In the same way 2 and 3, 2 and 4 and so on. So, all possible pairs can be compared, right? Once you compare that, then you draw on a scatter plot. This is a scatter plot, right? Across a chromosome, we are taking across a chromosome. In one chromosome, the distance between, you can estimate the LD between using a genetic distance or a physical distance, okay, and then you plot. Once you plot the curve, you can one of the thumb rule is that the R square value at 0.1, okay, here is a curve, you have drawn the curve, R square value at 0.1, if you drop down from the point of 0.1, that is considered as LD decay, okay, LD decay. Here it is around 37 to 38 centimorgan, right? So, your LD block will be 38 centimorgan in this particular study. Clear? Why we need to identify this? We need to identify this because based on this you can say like in this particular crop the LD block is too high, so use less markers for association mapping. If LD block is too small, then you say use more number of markers and larger population size in order to have proper estimates of the genomic regions or the marker trait associations, okay. So, this is one hypothetical example. This is an example in foxtail millet. Here you can see that they say it is around 176 kb. LD decay in foxtail millet in this particular population which they have used is around 176 kb. When you see that in rice, you can see that indicas, red lines are indica. Indicas have got higher recombination frequencies. Among the indica genotypes, the recombination is too high as compared to tropical japonica, right? And therefore, you can, when you use indica, you use more number of markers. When you use japonica, relatively you can reduce the number of markers. Before to that, I made this plot. This is a triangle plot. Okay. Here you can see this is one of the methods of representing LD again. Here it is number markers, again this is markers, and the position they have given the positions. And the upper triangle is R square, lower triangle is p value, right. Once you generate R square, after estimating R correlation coefficient, what will be the next step? You need to say whether it is significantly correlated or not. A test of significance is essential, right. Only then you will get p values, right. Here we do Fisher's exact test, that is one method, or you can use chi-square test. Okay. You can use chi-square test in order to estimate the p values. Now, along the diagonal you can see that the blue lines, blue ones, right, blue ones refers to it is around 0.7, right, it is around 0.7, 0.8. So, they have significant LD, right, they have got LD, but the ones which are away from the diagonal, but still they show a signal of LD, which is not due to linkage, it may be due to something else that we will discuss. Okay. This is the triangle plot. Yes. This one R square. We need to calculate LD first, then you draw that in a plot with the physical distance or genetic distance on x axis, on y axis you have R square, right, and with this you get the LD decay. 0.1 they say up to 0.1 it is fine, or else there are several other ways. Let me say here LD decay. How do we say LD decay? It is LD half, right, LD half. So, in their experiment it was the LD was the significant LD was around 0.46, around 0.46. So, the half of 0.46 is 0.23. So, they identified 0.23 as LD half. Okay. From that point they draw the line and they say that the corresponding physical distance, that is around 178 kb, as the point of LD block or LD decay. Now, what are the factors that affect LD? As I said, anything, any factor for that matter, which deviates from randomness will, if it deviates from the randomness, it increases LD, right. Deviation from randomness means, for example, self pollination. Self pollination leads to fixation, right, and therefore the LD increases. Clear? LD increases means what? You have two alleles, there is LD. You have third allele, you have LD. So, LD block is higher and higher and higher, right. That is, it increases LD. In cross pollinated crops, due to frequent outcrossing, there is reduction in LD, right, and it decreases, outcrossing decreases LD, right. In the same way, if there is, if you have generated a population out of a selected founder parents, right, in that case also the LD will be very high, right. If you do some selection, or if there are traits which are which have epistatic in nature, all have got higher LD, right. But the factors that decrease LD are high recombination, recurrent mutations, outcrossings, gene conversions. Okay, these are all the factors that decrease LD. The factors that increase LD, here there are certain aspects like population structure, kinship, admixture. All these things we'll discuss in detail in the next slides. So now we have come to know about LD and how to identify the LD block, right? We have calculated LD decay. Now the next step is how to use LD in mapping, right? So association mapping utilizes LD based approach, okay, in order to detect the marker trait associations. There are several advantages of association mapping. First thing is there is no need of mapping population, right? Structured crosses are not required, and there is no need to generate a population. So you can use a natural population, or natural diversity can be tapped here. The second is it utilizes recombinational events, historical recombination and mutational events that can be tapped here. Naturally they are available. We are using some algorithms, we are using some methods in order to tap those information. The resolution of identified QTLs are very, very high, right? When the resolution is very high, the power of detection is low, right? Next, it can be used in any crop. It can be annual, it can be perennial, it can be vegetatively propagated crops, etc. You can do that in trees, you can do that in humans. You cannot, in certain crops like in trees where the gestation period is 8 to 10 years, there you cannot make a structured cross and develop a mapping population, right? In that cases we can easily go for association mapping. And most importantly, it can tap multiple alleles, okay? Here it can tap multiple alleles, unlike in biparental mapping population where it can tap only 2 alleles, right? So what are the requirements? One is we need germplasm panel, we need a trait for phenotyping, we need some platform in order to genotype, then we need a statistical test in order to identify the MTAs, right? Why do I say genotyping platform? Why not SSRs? Since the resolution is high in association mapping, I said the power of QTL detection is low, and therefore you need high coverage. For example, the most abundantly available markers are SNPs. Since SNPs are available across the genome with high abundance, this can be effectively utilized. So the first thing is germplasm panel. I'm sorry, it's not clearly visible. It's a very good picture, actually I got it from net. Here you can see that there is huge variability for grain size, grain color, hull color, okay, awns, etc. So your population should be such that it possesses huge variation, okay. Only when there is variation you can identify QTLs, right? And this is another example. In maize you can look at the cob length, there is huge variation for cob length, then grain color, then grain size, then row number, etc. So whenever you choose germplasm set for association mapping, you should be very, very careful. The next thing that you have to do with the association mapping panel is phenotyping, right? You have identified the target traits for which you are going to phenotype, and mostly it is quantitative trait, right? Since we are talking about mapping QTLs, it is about the quantitative traits. Since they are quantitative traits, it has got small effect genes with additive nature, that is an assumption, and you need to evaluate them at multi locations and multi years. Higher is the better. You know why? It is because since these traits are governed by minor effect genes, it has got confounding effect with environment, right? and therefore you need to go for multi-location trials. And most importantly, since you will have larger number of germplasm lines, right, around 250 to 500 lines, for example. For example, if you are handling 500 lines, how you are going to evaluate them in field? Normal RBD will not work here. Normal complete block designs will not work here, right? Because the blocks, as the block size increases, the error rate increases, right? Therefore, you need to go for incomplete block designs, right? One of the approach is to go for augmented RBD, wherein checks are replicated but not the entries. You have alpha lattice. In alpha lattice, you can replicate the entries also, right? For example, you can replicate, for example, you have 500 genotypes, 500 germplasm lines that can be replicated twice, and the blocks are reduced, right? Since this is incomplete block design, each block will not possess all the genotypes, okay, all the genotypes which you are taking into consideration. Small blocks are generated, and 2 replication or 3 replication can be easily made out of it, and you will have very good data out of alpha lattice. And see, it is a trade off about the resources that you have, right? In alpha lattice, you get 2 replication data. In augmented RBD, you get only 1 data point, but the checks are replicated. You will calculate the adjusted means, you will generate the adjusted means based on the error variance which you are going to get from the checks, okay. So, for each block you are going for a blanket recommendation of adjusted means, but in alpha lattice it is not so. You get 2 replication data. It is all up to the resource availability. You have partial replication designs. This is a method, it is a modified kind of augmented RBD design, wherein instead of checks, checks are the standard varieties. Most of the times we do not require checks to be evaluated again and again, right? But here in augmented RBD, what we are doing, we are replicating checks and then calculating the error variances, right? In PREP, it is a modified method wherein instead of checks, you use query entries in order to replicate, okay. And with several other modifications, now it is said that PREP gives a very good estimates, just like alpha lattice or any other incomplete block design. There are several high throughput phenotyping techniques also that yesterday Dr. Vishwanathan had elaborated you with a facility, that is lab phenomics facility, which can be done in laboratory, field phenomics facility, wherein the plants are grown in normal field conditions and camera based data recording is carried out. The third method is using drones, that is unmanned aerial vehicles, right. The next thing that we need to look in is genotyping, how we are going to genotype. As I said, we require abundant markers, therefore, you can go for genotyping with SNPs. Since the advent of several sequencing chemistries and genotyping techniques, the per data point cost of genotyping has reduced tremendously, has reduced very, it has decreased too much, and now genotyping with SNP is affordable, okay. So, several techniques that are available are GBS, DD-RAD-seq, you have DART-seq, you have genotyping arrays. In genotyping arrays, we have Affymetrix and Illumina chips, wherein several chips are readily available. Like for example, in rice we have 50K chip, in wheat we have 35K chip, in pigeon pea we have certain chips, we have in chickpea, and in many of the crops we have Affymetric chips that are readily available. Even in a Illumina chip, we have 1K chip for rice, we have several other chips that can be utilized. The other approach is to go for whole genome resequencing. Whole genome resequencing is a costly affair, and therefore, the international community has come together to sequence certain number of genotypes. Like for example, 3000 rice genome project has sequenced around 3000 rice genotypes, and it is made freely available in the public domain. Now, you can download the genomic sequence data that is available online and indent for the seeds of these genotypes to IRI, get them and evaluate for your trait of interest, right. Whole world can work on one genotype that has been generated, right. So, several other projects of this kind are necessary in order to reduce the cost, especially for genotyping. So, what are the major issues in association mapping? The major issue is false discovery. We have very good phenotype, we have very good genotype. The next step is to associate phenotype with genotype, right. But still, although you have good phenotype, good genotype, there are several false discoveries. Why this false discovery occur? This is because of either over representation or under representation of alleles, right. As I said, it is all dependent on gene and allele frequencies and haplotype frequencies, right. If there is a significant deviation in from the expected frequencies, then we say there is LD, right. But the germplasm panel that you have selected, if it has got under representation or over representation of particular alleles, then automatically it will show the MTA, right. Although it does not exist, still it declares MTAs. Okay. Why this happen? This happens because of several points. One is hitchhiking effect. What does this mean? It means that when a selective favorable mutation occurs, then slowly the frequency of that particular mutation increases in a particular population. Along with the along with the favorable mutation, the linked genes also tend to inherit together, right, and that leads to LD. That is known as hitchhiking effect, which was first identified in Drosophila. The next one is familial relatedness. The familial relatedness comes due to alleles being similar because of common ancestry, okay, because of common ancestry, that is identical by descent or identical by state. Let us discuss about that in the next slide. The third point is the structure in the population, right. When you have a germplasm panel, right, for example, you have collected certain genotypes from IRI. Let us say you have collected from IRI. Now, in IRI, what we do, we usually use indica rice germplasm or basmati rice germplasm, and we intercross among the basmati rice germplasm, right. And because of the population that we use, it is highly structured, they are highly related with each other, right. If you take a set from China, it will be all Japonica rice varieties, right. The allele frequencies there will be different, the allele frequencies here will be different. Just because there is allelic differences, you cannot say that it is an MTA, right. You have to negate all those false positives, right. In order to do that, we need to know the structure of our population. The fourth point is geographical isolation or random drift. It is all related. The structure is related with the geographical isolation or random drift. What does that random drift mean? Because of small founder population, there is fixation of certain alleles, because since it is originating from a small founder population, right, and therefore there is fixation of alleles, and therefore there is deviation. Epistatic selection. Now, if you have certain genes which have got the epistatic effect, right, and we are selecting for those genes, although the two genes are present on two different chromosomes, but still, for example, color, for example, I want to select for red color, red colored rice, pericarp color with red pericarp we are going to select. It has got epistatic effect, right. If you select for one gene, the other gene will come together, right. Why this happen? Because of the epistasis, right. Because of this also there could be LD, right.
Structure should not be there in population.
Yes. So, this is about population structure. Any marker allele which is in high frequency in the overrepresented subpopulation, then there is a declaration of MTA. That is a usual phenomena, okay, but it is a false positive, because your population is overrepresented by a particular allele. Just because of that you cannot declare it as association, right. In order to avoid those spurious associations, several methods have been proposed. One is the Bayesian approach, that is incorporated in a software called Structure. Okay. It uses MCMC method, that is Markov-Chain Monte Carlo method. It is a chain reaction, okay, and you can identify the subpopulations present in your germplasm set that you are going to use in association mapping. Okay. Now, you can see that there are three subpopulations that is represented by red color, green and blue. So, easily you can bifurcate your total population into mainly three different subpopulations. If you had not done this, then there would have been a tremendous spurious associations. Okay. Once these subpopulations are identified, the next step is the output of this will be in the form of Q matrix. Okay. You will get a Q matrix out of it. There are several other approaches like PCA. You can use principal component analysis also. This method is computational intensive. Okay. This method is highly computational intensive because it utilizes Bayesian approaches and MCMC methods. So, it is highly intensive. Okay. The other approaches are PCA, principal component analysis. In principal component analysis, again based on correlation matrices or covariance matrix, you can easily identify the structure of the population again. Okay, you can identify the subpopulations. Here you can see that by using PC1 and PC2, you can easily differentiate between OS. You can differentiate between, this is red indica, then you can see this is green tropical japonica. If you use PC2 and PC3, again you can differentiate all four, right. There is one more method, that is PCOA, that is principal coordinate analysis, where it utilizes the distance matrix. The difference between PCA and PCOA is just that it utilizes correlation or covariance matrix. There it utilizes distance matrix. Then comes the familial relatedness. One is the structure in the population. The second thing is the relatedness between the individuals as such, that is kinship. Okay, that is kinship. Now, if you consider marker allelic frequencies, or if you consider the alleles, if two individuals have got similar alleles because of co-ancestry, that we call it as identical by descent. Because of that, there comes relatedness. The other is identical by state. Although the two individuals carrying same allele are not coming from same ancestry, but still they are same, right? That is known as identical by state. So, the familial relatedness comes in form of K matrix. Okay. So, this is the workflow of association mapping. First of all, you need to have germplasm set, that is diversity panel. Then we have genome wide polymorphisms. These genome wide polymorphisms are subjected to several tests, that is you can you have to filter out the minor allele frequency, okay, minor allele frequency of less than 0.05 are removed. All the unidentified or missing calls have to be removed, okay, and then this has to be subjected to population structure. The population structure can be done using PCA or structure, okay. So, in order to get the Q, and then the genotype data is also subjected for to identify the familial relatedness. By that we get kinship. These two are used as covariates. On the other hand, we have phenotype. The phenotype data is generated, that is curated, okay. Any outliers and all those things have to be removed from the analysis, and the phenotype as well as genotype is fitted in a model. Why is phenotype? Genotype plus Q by Q or K. In certain models we use Q or K, in certain models we use both Q and K, okay, in order to fit the model. Once this is fit, you can easily identify the marker trait associations. What are the different methods of association mapping? One is single locus generalized linear model, which utilizes least square fixed effect linear models, okay. This utilizes least square fixed effect linear model. In the other method, that is single locus mixed linear model, wherein it includes both fixed and random effect, right. The marker alleles are fixed effect, the structure, kinship, all these comes, all these are considered as random effects. Since both fixed and random effects are included, we call it as mixed model, okay, and it utilizes Q and K, and therefore it corrects for structure and kinship. The third important method is multi-locus mixed linear model. It corrects for Q, K, as well as it corrects for any effect due to background polymorphisms. Yesterday you learned about CIM, composite interval mapping. What does it do? The significant markers are identified first. They are used as covariates in a simple interval mapping in order to resolve two linked QTLs, right. So, it is all because we have to negate the background effect. So, in the same way here in multi-locus mixed linear model, it negates the background polymorphisms. So, this is the mixed model. We have phenotype, which is equal to the X here refers to the background SNPs, the effect due to background SNPs. Here S refers to the effect due to target SNP. Then you have Q, that is Q matrix, that is coming from structure or PCA or PCOA, and you have Z, that is K matrix, and you have error. Once this is fit, once it is fit, then easily Y becomes X, sorry, Y becomes S, that is phenotype is equal to genotype, and then the marker trait associations are identified. This is a total snapshot. I think already you have seen. Here you have phenotype, you have genotype. After filtering, you subject it to structure or PCOA or PCA or MDS, and marker trait kinship. You have Q matrix, you have K matrix, okay. Q is coming from either from structure or this. any one you can utilize. Okay. And then in the analysis part, in normal naive method, you do not use any q or k. Okay. And therefore, the false positives are too high. In GLM, that is generalized linear model, single locus generalized linear model, here we use Q matrix only, and here we use fixed effects, and therefore we are using only Q, and therefore still we have higher number of false positives. In the third approach, that is MLM, that is mixed linear model, here since you are going to use Q as well as K both together, and therefore the false positives are comparatively less. There are several other approaches wherein, for example, you have you take data stage wise, like after 5 days, after 10 days, after 15 days, after 20 days. Either you do stage wise association mapping, or we can go for certain algorithms called longitudinal association mapping. Okay. So now these methods are being developed, and recently there was a publication on it. If you are interested, you can go back and read. Once market rate associations are generated, these are represented in the form of QQ plot. This is known as QQ plot, quantile plot, and this is Manhattan plot, right? The red line is the expected p values, and blue dots are the observed p values, right? If there is a deviation, from the expected p values, then we say that there are significant associations. If in case there were no significant associations, it would have come exactly on the line, right? If there is deviation, then you can see here these many SNPs are not significant, like they are in line with the expected frequencies, but only these many SNPs or market rate associations are significantly deviating from the expectation. Once it is deviating, we say that it is LD, right? It is market rate association. The second approach of presenting our results is using Manhattan plot. This is known as Manhattan plot, this is chromosome number, and this is physical position. Okay. Now, in general, what we do is we take p value as 0.01 is highly significant, right? 0.01 is equal to, what does the 0.01 in log terms mean? It is log 2, right? Because it is 10 power minus 2, that is minus 2 minus log to the base 10, p is 2. So this is that value. If you keep this as a threshold, then you can see that there are huge spurious associations. Even after we have incorporated Q matrix, incorporated K matrix, still there are huge spurious associations. Why this happened? Here also you can see there are many QTLs. Whole of your chromosome has got MTS, which is not true, right? Why this happened? This happened because we do multiple testing. Multiple testing in the sense every SNP is associated with a trait, right? When you associate every SNP with the trait, what is the significance that you have? 0.01, right? Once it crosses the threshold limit of 0.01, we start saying there is significant association. What does that 0.01 mean? There is 1% error yet. That is, if you test 100 times, there is 1 error. Now, with the SNPs that you are using, like for example 50,000 SNPs that you are using in market rate association, right? Market 50,000, 1%, what will be the error value? 1% of 50,000 is around 5,000. So you are bound to get on an average 5,000 spurious associations, right? In order to avoid that, we need to have certain corrections. One of the correction factor is Bonferroni corrections. In Bonferroni correction, what we do is the p value that we are going to take, that is 0.01, right, or 0.05, any one, and number of divided by number of markers. For example, here it is 50,000 markers. 0.01 by 50,000 is 2 into 10 power minus 7, which is, if you convert into log terms, it is minus log 6.7. If you draw a 6 line, threshold line at minus 6.7, you can see that these are the actual associations which are the true MTAs. Okay. Here you can see that at this stringency there are no associations identified. So, what are the different methods of correcting this multiple testing? Okay. We have several tests like Q value, we have FDR, we have permutation method, we have Bonferroni step down correction and Bonferroni correction. Bonferroni correction is the most stringent one and Q values or FDR is less stringent one. Here we have chances of more of false negatives, here we have chances of more false positives. So, what are the disadvantages of association mapping? Rare alleles cannot be used here, but we have certain algorithms now where you can utilize rare alleles also. It requires very dense coverage, therefore, it is a costly affair. You cannot identify the epistatic QTLs, that you can identify in normal QTL mapping. The power of QTL detection is low. This can be increased by using certain other mapping populations, multi-parent populations such as NAM, MAGIC, or you can go for multi-family association mapping. Once you identify the marker trait associations, next you need to identify the candidate genes. We identify the candidate genes based on the marker trait association. You land onto the SNP, identify which gene it is, and then do some downstream analysis, like you can go for expression profiling, you can clone them, you can do functional characterization and so on. In the meantime, you can design markers based on SNPs, and that can be directly utilized in marker assisted selection in order to transfer those particular genes. With this, I like to thank you. If you have any doubts, then you can discuss. Population structure. Actually, I want to go to that slide. Yes.
After forming subpopulation, then now we can select genotypes for further analysis.
No, we are not selecting the genotype here. Here, based on this, Q matrix is generated, the Q value is generated. Then use that as a covariate in your model in order to reduce the spurious associations. Here, we are not going to say that yes, I am going to include this, I am not going to include this. Not so. It is just that we are using this as a correction factor or covariate in our model in order to have better associations.
Sir, you had said that we have to validate the markers in the biparental population. Whether that biparental population should include the parent which is included in this association mapping panel?
Yes, because here we'll have here we are going to tap multiple alleles rather, right? In biparental mapping population, if that does not exist, obviously there will be no detection of QTL at all.
So means it is must that it should be in this.
Sir, From R square value, how we can say that this population is in liquid disequilibrium and in linkage equilibrium? From R square value, we get 0.59 value, 59.
Okay, 0.59. Okay.
How we can say that this population is in
Okay.
equilibrium?
That's what I said. Once you have R square, you need to subject it for test of significance. Test of significance is done by chi-square test or Fisher's exact test, right? Based on that, you will identify whether it is significant LD or not.